Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jarrett from AFC North Talk checking in on the channel for obvious reasons. The show's on hiatus until the end of this month once training camp is back up. But obviously, the Steelers just did another notable thing, trading away Minkah Fitzpatrick and a 2027 fifth round pick in exchange for Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, and a 2027 seventh round pick. The total compensation for the trade. And rightfully so. I figured we would come together here real quickly and I would give you my perspective, my thoughts on the trade. If you haven't already seen it over on Believe in Steelers, and even if you have seen it over on Believe in Steelers, it's good to get it up here as well. So my initial thoughts were I was bummed to find out that Minkah was part of the trade. Because if you were following along with it on Twitter, Adam Schefter put out, hey, the Steelers have traded for Jalen Ramsey. And immediately I was like, hell yeah, look at that secondary with Ramsey, Porter, Darius Slay, Minkah, Deshaun Elliott. And then maybe 10 minutes later, Schefter puts out a follow-up tweet saying, Minkah Fitzpatrick's part of the trade. And funny enough, I did the quick write-up for it for Behind the Steel Curtain, which, by the way, the quick plug here, go and follow all the written work over at Behind the Steel Curtain, the dedicated Steelers coverage for SB Nation. I'm the managing editor over there. So if you want more Steelers coverage, Steelers fans, in written form, go and check out all the work there. So I did the write-up for the news story on Behind the Steel Curtain. All right, Jalen Ramsey's a Steeler. We don't know the compensation yet, but Jalen Ramsey's a Steeler. Isn't that awesome? And then I got in my car to go get a haircut because I had a haircut scheduled. And as I'm getting in, I get another Schefter notification that says Minkah Fitzpatrick's part of the deal. And so I get out of the car, I go back upstairs, I do another write-up. Oh, Minkah Fitzpatrick is part of the deal. And like I said, my initial thought around that was I was bummed. Minkah has been not just, one of the faces of the defense, but one of the faces of the team since 2019. And whenever you move on from a guy like that, even if his play has taken a little bit of a step back, you grow, we're fans and we grow sentimental toward players. And he was certainly one of those guys that I had grown to. I mean, he's genuinely one of my favorite Steelers ever. In the mid to late 2010s, if Steelers fans remember, the defense wasn't good. Started turning a table when they drafted TJ in 2017, and they signed Joe Hayden in 2018. But getting Minkah was the final piece of making that defense elite. And it came ahead of week 3. It was right after Ben hurt his elbow and was done for the year. And the Steelers made a really big statement by trading for Minkah, saying, look, we're not mailing it in on this year. We're going to lean on our defense. This guy's going to be a really big part of that. And we're going to rally around whoever is our quarterback. But the defense is going to be what's going to help us win games. And damn it, did it. They started off 0-3, and then they won 8 of their next 10 games, in large part because of what Minkah did. 5 interceptions that year, was a first-team All-Pro, had that 96-yard interception return against the Colts, which was, I would say, his highlight of that season, but also had a fumble return for a touchdown against the Rams, had an interception that game against the Rams as well. Everything you could have wanted after trading for Minkah Fitzpatrick, he did that and then some. And then in 2020, they start off 11-0. He's an All-Pro that year as well. So everything that he did for a 4-year stretch, I would say from 2019 to 2022, he was the best safety in football. I don't think that's too much of a stretch. The last 2 seasons, in 2023, he missed 7 games, didn't have an interception. Last year, played all 17 games, but only had 1 interception. The splash plays had gone down considerably. And Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette had revealed that the lack of splash plays was part of the reason why the Steelers were comfortable in trading Minkah, because they felt like his production in terms of those splash plays wasn't meeting what they were paying him. And again, it's a business, and whenever a guy loses a step, he becomes more expendable no matter what he's done in the past. That's the NFL. But, like I said, was still bummed because of all the things that Minkah has done, what he's meant to the team. And that was my initial thoughts on it. So salute to Minkah Fitzpatrick and everything that he's done. Wish him nothing but the best going forward. Genuinely one of my favorite Steelers ever. And I'll miss seeing him on the field wearing the Steelers 39. Will miss him. But the flip side of that coin is, man, I'm excited to have Jalen Ramsey, a guy who can still play, a guy who in and of his own right is a multiple-time All-Pro, multiple-time Pro Bowler, helped the Rams win the Super Bowl in 2021, and a guy who brings a lot of versatility to the defense. If you want to play him outside, you can play him outside. If you want to bump him inside to nickel, he can play nickel. If you want to put him at safety, he can play safety. He's talked about wanting to play safety. So there are so many different things you can do with him. The Rams did so many things with him when he was playing that star position, right? When he was floating all around the defense and they had him doing so many different things. One of the smarter defensive backs in the NFL, one of the best tackling defensive backs in the NFL. So, I mean, you lose Minkah, who's a good tackler in and of himself, but you replace him with Jalen Ramsey. They don't really lose anything in that regard. And, as much as I love Minkah, I think in terms of player for player there, they got better. I think that Jalen Ramsey right now is a better player than Minkah Fitzpatrick is right now. And like I said, the fact that they can move him all around the defense and he can do a bunch of different stuff, whether he wants to, if Darius Slay's having a little bit of a bad game and you want to put Minkah on the outside and, put Beanie Bishop or Brandon Eccles in the slot at nickel, you can do that. If you want to have all of those guys on the field at the same time, you can put Joey Porter and Darius Slay on the boundary, put Jalen Ramsey in the nickel. If you want to have Porter and Slay on the outside, but you want Beanie Bishop on the field, you can put Jalen Ramsey back at safety. There's so many different things that you can do with him at this point in his career where he's still playing at a high level. Again, I think that this is a net win for the Steelers. We haven't talked about the Jonnu Smith side of things yet. I don't think we're going to see an 88 catch, 8 touchdown season from Jonnu Smith like he did last year. But when he was with Arthur Smith, both in Tennessee and Atlanta, he was still productive. And there's going to be people who, let's say he catches 57 passes this year for 6 touchdowns. They're going to look at those numbers, compare them to last year in Miami and say, oh, see, Arthur Smith doesn't know what he's doing. That's not true. I think having any expectations of him to be a 90 catch guy would be a little bit too high of expectations, but still a guy who I think if you just use him less as a tight end and more of just a slot receiver can be really productive. And they can have Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, and Jonnu Smith on the field at the same time without having to go, into 13 personnel. They can do it with Jonnu Smith being a slot receiver. So I'm sure that they will work him into sets like that where, it's DK Metcalf and, Robert Woods on the outside, or DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin, or DK and Roman Wilson, whoever the number 2 guy is. And instead of, putting Calvin Austin or Roman in the slot in those situations, not to say that they can't, but, in certain situations, they can put Jonnu Smith there while still having Pat Freiermuth on the field. So there's things that they can do. If they wanted to work him out wide, I don't know what that would look like. I would definitely expect only seeing him in the slot or with his hand in the dirt as a traditional tight end, but a versatile weapon that you can do a bunch of different stuff with. And it's another pass catcher. It's not a boundary pass catcher, but he is a guy that can go and get you some yards after the catch for a tight end as well. So I'm pleased with the return that they got. Another offensive weapon. They'll have to figure out how they're going to work him in. And they're also going to have to figure out what that tight end room is going to look like, because now it's Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, Darnell Washington, Connor Hayward's still on the roster. Frankly speaking, he probably shouldn't be. He'll play special teams, but I don't need to see Connor Hayward taking offensive snaps. There's no reason why he should get any sort of offensive reps. If you want to play him on special teams, play him on special teams. no reason for him to get any sort of targets when you have those other 3 tight ends in front of him. So I think that getting Jonnu Smith, a big net positive for the offense. Looking forward to seeing what it looks like as a whole. And I think that while getting rid of Minkah is hard from a sentimental standpoint, from a player standpoint, they got better by getting Jalen Ramsey in the trade. So I think they got better, and we'll see how it plays out come September, or really come August, depending how much these guys play in the preseason. I would like to see them get at least, just a couple series, just so they're not completely cold going into week 1 against the Jets. So, like, at least get their feet wet a little bit, dip their toe in the water of live game action, and be ready to go come week 1 when they head to MetLife to play the New York Jets. But man alive, like, if you're the Jets right now, you've got Garrett Wilson on offense and who? Malachi Corley, Alan Lazard, I guess. But if you're Justin Fields right now and you're looking, okay, I got Joey Porter over here, I got Darius Slay over here covering the number 2, Jalen Ramsey somewhere over there, plus, TJ Watt coming off the edge and Alex Highsmith came out. Like, on paper, the Steelers defense can be a top 5 unit in the NFL. They got off to a hot start last year and then fell off a cliff in the last month or so of the season. But if they can sustain this throughout the entirety of the year, they're a little bit deeper than what they were last year, especially in the secondary and on the defensive line. I think that this is a defense that can be a top 5 unit and an offense that should be better. So they got better in the trade. Again, we'll miss Minkah, but overall Pittsburgh got better. Be sure to subscribe to the AFC North Talk channel, everybody. Again, we'll be back doing full episodes all together, me, Q, Sonny, and Ace, for AFC North Talk at the end of the month once training camp starts, into the preseason, and then, of course, twice a week throughout the regular season, as always. So appreciate everybody for tuning in. And again, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when we go live, and we will see you very soon on AFC North Talk. Take care. Till